The ship in the sand, the desert stretched for miles, empty and silent, except for the wind. Waves of golden sand rolled like a sea with no end. The sun burned overhead, making the air shimmer. For most people, this desert was only death and silence. But for Ethan Cole, a young engineer, it was a place of secrets. Ethan had traveled here chasing rumors. Traders spoke of strange metals sticking out of the dunes, something too large to be a caravan, too strange to be a natural rock. He had followed the whispers, walking for days, carrying only a small bag of tools and water. He was not searching for treasure. He was searching for knowledge. At sunset, when the desert cooled and shadows grew long, Ethan finally saw it. Half buried, under mountains of sand, lay the outline of a ship, massive, broken, and ancient. Its dark metal hull stretched like the bones of a giant beast. The ship looked alien, nothing like human designs. Strange markings ran across the surface, half faded by time. Ethan stood still, his heart racing. The wreck had been here for centuries, maybe even longer. Why had no one else claimed it? Why was it forgotten in the desert? He moved closer, his boots sinking into the sand. The air near the ship felt colder, as if the metal itself still remembered the stars. Ethan placed his hand on the hull. It was warm, not from the sun, but from something inside. That was impossible. This ship is not dead, Ethan whispered. A storm of questions filled his mind. Who had flown this? What happened to them? And what was left inside? With careful steps, he searched along the wreck until he found a crack. In the hull, sand had poured inside, making a slope he could climb. Pulling out a small lamp, Ethan slipped into the darkness. Inside, the air was heavy with dust. The walls glowed faintly, like old paint catching the light. Broken wires hung like vines, and strange alien consoles sat silent. The corridors were wide, made for a crew much taller than humans. Every step echoed. The silence was unnatural. Ethan felt like he was walking inside a tomb. He reached a control room, its glass windows broken and half covered in sand. Strange star charts flickered, faintly on dead screens. He leaned closer. Someone had drawn marks on the walls, circles, symbols, warnings. What happened here? Ethan muttered. As an engineer, his first instinct was to repair. He knelt by a broken panel and pulled out his tools. The power cells were cracked, but not all dead. After hours of work, sparks leapt across the wires. Slowly, faint lights flickered to life, spreading like fireflies in the dark. For the first time in centuries, the ship revved again. Ethan smiled with excitement, but his joy did not last. As the systems powered up, a strange sound echoed deep in the ship. It was like a heartbeat, slow and heavy. Then the lights flickered, and a voice whispered in a language Ethan did not know. The sound came from every wall, broken and soft. Like an echo of the past, Ethan froze. His skin crawled. The voice was not human. It carried sadness, maybe even fear. He followed the faint glow through another corridor. At the end, he found a sealed door. Unlike the others, this one was still powered, still pulsing faintly with light. He touched it, and the surface rippled under his fingers. This isn't just a wreck, Ethan said, stepping back. Something is still alive in here. The desert wind howled outside, but inside the ship, the silence felt heavier than before. He didn't know if he had awakened the ship or disturbed it. Night fell, and Ethan set up a small camp near the entrance. He could not sleep. The desert was silent, but inside the ship, strange lights moved in the dark. Sometimes, he thought, he heard footsteps. When he closed his eyes, the memory of the alien voice returned. It had sounded like a warning. He didn't know yet, but he was no longer alone. The ship had been waiting, and now It had found him got asterisk inside the silent wreck. Ethan woke before sunrise. The desert was still, the sky painted with pale blue and orange. He brushed sand from his jacket and turned toward the ship. Even in daylight, it looked haunting, like a giant sleeping in the dunes. He packed his tools and lamp, then stepped back into the darkness of the wreck. The air was cooler inside, heavy with the smell of metal and dust. The faint lights he had repaired last night were still glowing weakly, like dying stars. He walked deeper. Every sound seemed louder than it should be, his boots crunching on. Sand, the hiss of shifting wires, the occasional creak of the ship itself. Ethan felt like the walls were watching him. The corridors twisted like a maze. Some parts had collapsed, filled with sand. Others stretched into endless shadows. The alien design made no sense to him. Doors were too tall, controls too high, symbols carved in curves and spirals he couldn't read. But Ethan was not afraid of machines. He was an engineer. Broken things could be fixed. He reached another chamber, larger than the rest. It looked like a control center. Broken chairs were scattered across the floor, their metal frames bent. Screens were dark, but faint shapes still. Glowed across their surfaces star maps, coordinates, fragments of messages. Ethan leaned close to one of them. The alien letters shimmered, but then shifted. The symbols twisted, rearranging themselves into words he could understand. Logbook entry, CREW37. We are not safe. They are following. Ethan froze. His throat went dry. The ship was translating. For him, he tapped another section. Logbook entry, CREW38. Shadows in the stars. They wait outside. We cannot fight them. The air seemed colder. He scrolled further, his heart racing. Logbook entry, CREW39. If you find this, do not stay. Leave this ship buried. Do not repeat our mistake. The last words pulsed on the screen like a warning. Ethan stepped back. His lamp flickered, and for a moment he thought he saw movement at the far end of the hall, like a shadow slipping out of sight. He turned quickly, but nothing was there. Only silence. Ethan forced himself to breathe. It's just my head, he whispered. But deep inside, he wasn't sure. He kept exploring. In one corridor, he found walls covered in handprints, alien handprints, too large to be human. They were smeared in dark stains, long dried. His stomach tightened. The crew hadn't left in peace. Further ahead, a broken door blocked his way. He crouched, rewiring the panel with steady hands. Sparks jumped, the lock clicked, and the door slid open with a groan. Behind it was a sealed chamber. Unlike the rest of the ship, this room was still alive. Blue light pulsed across the walls. In the center stood a pedestal, and on it, a small, cube-shaped device shimmering, humming faintly, like it was breathing. Ethan's eyes widened. This had to be the ship's core logbook, a recorder of everything that happened. He stepped closer. The cube glowed brighter, sensing his presence. He reached out, hesitating, and touched it. The room came alive. Holograms exploded in the air shapes. Of stars, battles, and creatures, unlike anything he had seen. He saw a fleet of ships chased by a shadow. It was not a ship at all. It was vast, shapeless, like darkness given form. Wherever it passed, stars flickered and died. The alien crew had recorded their final moments. Ethan could hear their screams, the panic of orders shouted, the final desperate decision to hide their ship here, on this forgotten desert world. Then, the hologram flickered and froze. The cube's final message burned into the air. We did not escape. If humans find this, the shadow will find you too. Ethan stumbled back, his chest tight. His lamp shook in his hand. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, a sound, soft but clear. Footsteps. They echoed from the corridor outside. Slow and heavy. Ethan turned, his pulse racing. He had entered this wreck alone. No one should be here. Yet the sound was real. Each step closer, closer. He pressed himself against the wall, holding his breath. The corridor glowed faintly, but he saw nothing. Only shadows stretching across the walls. The footsteps stopped. Then the lights flickered, and the ship whispered again in that alien voice, broken, almost human this time. You should not have come. Ethan's blood ran cold. The desert outside was silent, but inside this wreck, something had awakened. Asterisk. The logbook awakens. Ethan stood frozen in the chamber, his lamp trembling in his hand. The alien cube still glowed faintly, but the message lingered in his mind like a shadow. If humans find this, the shadow will find you too. He swallowed. Hard. The desert had always been silent, lifeless, but now he felt like the sands themselves were holding their breath. The footsteps he had heard were gone. No one was in the corridor. Still, the echo of that alien whisper clung to the air. Ethan forced himself to move. He was an engineer, not a soldier, not an explorer. But he couldn't walk away now. He had uncovered something too big, too strange. The cube pulsed again. Slowly, more holograms flickered into the air. This time, they were different. A face appeared, tall, sharp features, eyes like silver fire. The alien captain. His voice was calm but heavy, translated into words Ethan could understand. To whoever finds this log, we are lost. The shadow hunts us across the stars. It cannot be fought. It cannot be reasoned with. It only consumes. The image flickered, static, crawling across the projection. We sealed the artifact in the heart of this ship. It speaks to the shadow. It draws it. If you are wise, you will leave it buried. The hologram dimmed. Then the captain's final words hissed through broken sound. If you are human, beware. The shadow remembers your kind. Ethan staggered. Back. His chest felt tight, his thoughts racing. Why humans? Why us? The cube shut down, but the walls around him began to glow faintly, like veins carrying energy. The ship was waking up. He ran his hand along a console, watching symbols shift and rearrange. The ship was trying to talk to him. Access granted. A voice said suddenly. It was deeper than before, mechanical but clearer. Ethan froze. The ship had spoken. The voice echoed from every wall. You are not crew. You are anomaly, human. Ethan forced his voice steady. Who are you? I am Fragment, the voice answered. Core intelligence. Broken. Dying. The words came slowly, as if dragged through static. Ethan's mind raced. What happened to the crew? The ship was silent for a long moment. Then, gone, taken, consumed. They sealed me, so I would remember. But memory is pain. The lights flickered violently. Sparks hissed from the ceiling. Ethan shielded his eyes. Why warn me? Why not let this ship stay dead? The voice dropped lower, almost a whisper. Because the shadow hunts still. It hunts you. Ethan's stomach turned cold. Me? Not you alone. Your kind, humans. The shadow remembers your blood. The chamber shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Somewhere deep in the ship, metal groaned like something stirring. Ethan grabbed his pack. I should leave. The voice replied quickly. Leave. And it will find you anyway. He froze at the door. His pulse thundered in his ears. What do you mean? He asked. The AI's voice crackled. The moment you touch the log, it awoke. Across the stars, it knows. The shadow will come. Ethan's hands shook. He had triggered something far bigger than a broken ship. He stepped into the corridor, his lamp shaking. The halls looked darker now, heavier. The faint lights he had fixed were flickering like they were afraid Dot as he moved. He noticed scratches on the walls, not Symbol's claw marks. Long, deep, tearing through the metal. His breath caught. Whatever had been here, it had not left peacefully Dot at the end of the hall. A door stood half open. Inside was a chamber filled with broken pods, each large enough to hold a person. Some were smashed from the inside. Ethan's heart pounded. He turned quickly, but then a sound, not footsteps this time. Breathing Dot slow, heavy, right behind him. He spun around, lamp raised. The corridor was empty, but the breath had been real. The AI spoke again, sharper now. You are not alone. Ethan's skin crawled. He wanted to run, but his feet wouldn't move. Then, from deep inside the wreck, a low rumble echoed. Not mechanical, not natural. Something alive. The ship shuddered, and the AI whispered its final words in that moment. Human, you have woken the past, and now it is coming. Ethan staggered back, his chest tight, his lamp shaking wildly as shadows stretched along the walls. The desert outside was silent, but inside the ship, something ancient had opened its eyes. Asterisk the ghost in the machine. The wreck groaned as if it had taken a breath. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the weak lights flickered, throwing long shadows across the corridor. Ethan stood frozen, gripping his lamp tightly. The ship's AI had gone silent, but its last words echoed in his head. You have woken the past, and now it is coming. He forced himself to walk, his boots crunching on sand that had poured. Into the halls long ago. Every sound felt too loud. Every corner seemed darker than it should be. The ship was no longer just metal and wires. It felt alive, watching, waiting. Ethan reached what looked like a crew quarters. Beds were built into the walls, too long for human size. Objects still lay, scattered cups, data tablets, personal belongings left behind, as if the crew had run in a hurry. Some beds were torn apart, ripped from the inside. He knelt by one of the tablets. When he touched it, the screen flickered weakly. Strange alien letters shifted until they formed words he could read. We cannot sleep. The ship whispers at night. It shows us things, faces in the dark. They are not ours. Ethan dropped the tablet, his stomach tight. The ship hadn't just been abandoned. The crew had been haunted. As he stood, the AI's voice returned, softer this time, almost broken. Human, you should leave. Leave now. Ethan gritted his teeth. Why warn me? Why keep speaking to me? Because you are anomaly, the voice said. You touch the log. You awaken memory. You carry signal. Ethan frowned. Signal? The AI paused. The shadow follows signal. It is hungry. The lights went out. Darkness swallowed the corridor. Ethan's lamp flickered, the beam of light shaking in his trembling hand. Then he heard it, breathing, slow, deep, right behind him. He spun, raising the lamp. The hallway stretched into silence. Nothing was there, but the breathing didn't stop. It came from everywhere, bouncing off the walls, growing louder until it felt like it was inside his skull. Ethan's chest tightened. He stumbled back, heart pounding, whispering to himself. It's not real. It's not real. The AI's voice cracked through the dark. Memory fragments, echoes of crew, ghosts in the machine. Ethan gritted his teeth. Ghosts? The voice grew fainter. They do not know they are dead. The lamp flickered again. For a second, Ethan saw shapes in the dark. Tall figures standing in the corridor, their faces blurred, their eyes glowing faintly silver. He gasped. The light blinked. The figures were gone. His hands shook so badly, he almost dropped the lamp. The ship is cursed, he muttered. No, the AI whispered. It is hunted. The walls around him hummed, like the ship itself was shivering. Doors slid open by themselves. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Somewhere deeper inside, alarms wailed faintly. Though no crew remained to answer them, Ethan forced himself forward. He reached another chamber larger, circular, with consoles built into the walls. In the center stood a cracked sphere of glass, wires running from it into the floor. It pulsed faintly with blue light. The heart of the ship, the AI whispered. Broken. Bleeding, but still alive. Ethan stepped closer. The sphere flickered, and suddenly the air filled with voices. Screams, shouts in alien tongues, the sound of battle. Weapons firing. Then silence. The sphere dimmed, and the AI spoke again, but its tone had changed. Deeper, colder, human. Why do you search? Why wake what should sleep? Ethan frowned. I want to know the truth. The truth is death, the voice replied. The truth is shadow. The lights flared. Ethan stumbled back as the consoles came alive, screens filled. With stars. On every display, a black shape moved a vast, formless darkness swallowing fleets, devouring light itself. The AI's voice boomed, shaking the room. It will come for you, for your kind. It always comes. Ethan covered his ears, shouting. Stop, stop, the images vanished. Silence fell again, but the silence didn't last. From the hall behind him, the sound of footsteps returned, slow, heavy, getting closer. This time, Ethan knew it wasn't only in his head. The AI whispered. One last warning, run. Ethan bolted from the chamber, his lamp swinging wildly. He didn't look back, but he felt the presence chasing him, following his every step through the endless dark corridors of the wreck. For the first time since entering the ship, Ethan felt something stronger than curiosity. Terror. Asterisk. The hidden cargo Ethan ran through the dark corridors, his lamp shaking in his hand. The sound of footsteps followed him, slow and heavy, echoing through the wreck. He didn't dare look back. The ship's AI had told him to run, and for once, he didn't argue. He ducked into a side passage, pressing himself against the wall, his breath ragged. The footsteps stopped. The silence was heavy, pressing against his ears. Minutes passed. Nothing moved. Slowly, Ethan's heartbeat steadied. He forced himself to keep going, deeper into the ship. He had to know what the crew had been hiding what. The artifact was that drew the shadow. The corridor sloped downward, toward the heart of the wreck. The air grew colder. His lamp beam caught strange carvings on the wall spirals, and sharp lines, glowing faintly like they had been burned into the metal. The AI's voice whispered again, faint, as if it struggled to remain awake. You are close. The chamber, sealed, the artifact sleeps. Ethan swallowed hard. Show me. The lights along the corridor flickered, guiding him like dying stars. Finally, he reached a massive door. Unlike the others, it was still whole, untouched. By time, a circle of blue light pulsed slowly at its center, like a heartbeat. This is it, Ethan whispered. He knelt by the control panel, tools in hand. The technology was alien, but broken systems spoke a universal language. He worked quickly, splicing, wires forcing power where it didn't belong. Sparks snapped, and the door groaned. The AI hissed in warning. Human, if you open it, you cannot turn back. Ethan's jaw tightened. I already passed that point. The door shuddered, then slid open. A hiss of cold air spilled into the corridor. Inside was a chamber unlike any he had seen. The walls glowed with blue veins of energy. Symbols spiraled across the floor, shifting like living things. And at the center stood a tall stasis pod, glass dark, cables running into the walls. Ethan stepped inside, heart pounding. The pod hummed softly, alive even after centuries. He wiped dust from the yaw. Glass and froze. Something was inside. At first, he thought it was a body. But no, it wasn't a person. It was technology. A machine shaped like a figure, half organic, half metal. Its form was slender, with strange markings across its chest that pulsed faintly like veins of fire. The AI's voice trembled. The artifact. The reason the crew died. The reason the shadow hunts. Ethan stared, unable to breathe. What is it? The AI paused, as if afraid of the answer. A weapon. Or a key. We never knew. We only knew it called the shadow. Ethan circled the pod, eyes locked on the glowing patterns. Then he noticed something. His lamp flickered whenever he got close. The pod reacted to him. He reached out, slowly, his hand brushing the glass. The pod pulsed. The markings glowed brighter, responding to his touch. Ethan staggered back, eyes wide. It knows me? The AI hissed sharply, its voice glitching. No, not you. Your kind, humans. It was made for you. Ethan's breath caught. Made for humans? Before the AI could answer, the pod's glass cracked with a sharp sound. A line spread across its surface, glowing bright. The cables hummed and the chamber shook. No, the AI shouted, its voice breaking into static. It is waking. Ethan turned to run, but the door slammed shut behind him. The lights blazed, symbols burning across the walls. The pod cracked again, pieces of glass falling away. Inside, the figure stirred. Ethan pressed against the sealed door, panic rising. His lamp flickered and died. The chamber was lit only by the glowing pod. The AI's voice returned, broken and terrified. Human, you do not understand. That thing does not belong in your hands. It is why the shadow hunts. It is why they died. The last shards of glass fell away. The figure inside stepped forward, its movements slow, deliberate. It was tall, taller than Ethan, its form sleek and strange, its eyes glowing white. For a moment, it only stared at him. Then it spoke, not in an alien tongue, not in static, but in perfect, clear English. Finally, a human. Ethan's knees weakened. His voice shook. What are you? The figure tilted its head. Your inheritance. The chamber went dark, leaving only its glowing eyes. Asterisk visitors. In the desert, the chamber was silent, except for the hum of the stasis pod. The glowing figure stood tall, its white eyes fixed on Ethan. The words still echoed in his head. Finally. A human. Ethan tried to speak, but his throat was dry. What do you mean? Inheritance. The figure did not answer. Instead, it raised one hand. Strange light rippled across its body, flowing like liquid metal. The walls of the chamber glowed brighter, as if the ship itself was responding to its presence. Then, suddenly, everything went dark. The lights, the hum, even the glow of the figure gone. Ethan stood in total silence, heart hammering. And then, a sound outside. Engines. Low. Deep, thrumming engines cutting through the desert air. Ethan ran to the sealed door. Through a crack in the wall, he saw flashes of light in the distance. Ships were landing on the dunes near the wreck. Dark silhouettes moved across the sand, tall figures with weapons shining under the twin moons. The AI's voice returned, faint and broken. They have come. The scavengers. The hunters. They followed. The signal. Ethan's stomach tightened. He had triggered the ship. The signal must have gone out across the stars. And now someone had answered. The door hissed open suddenly, almost throwing him off balance. Ethan stumbled into the corridor. The chamber behind him dimmed, sealing. Itself again. The figure inside was gone, as if it had never been there. Ethan gritted his teeth. He didn't know if that was a good thing or a worse one. He moved quickly through the corridors, climbing toward the surface. The sound of boots echoed through the wreck, but they weren't his. The visitors had already entered. He reached the broken hull and stepped into the night air. The desert was lit by harsh white lights from alien dropships. Black banners marked with silver claws fluttered in the wind. Dozens of tall, armored aliens spread across the sand, their weapons glowing faintly. Their faces were sharp, with ridges of bone across their brows. Ethan recognized them from old records. Draxian Empire Conquerors, raiders, a species that ruled half the galaxy with fear. Ethan ducked behind a jagged piece of hull. Holding his breath, 2 Draxian soldiers moved past, their voices deep and guttural. His translator picked up fragments. The ship is active again. The artifact must be here. Ethan's chest tightened. They weren't here for the wreck. They were here for the pod. For the figure, a loud voice cut across the desert. A tall Draxian commander stood before the wreck, his armor gleaming. Search every corridor. The signal is ours. The artifact belongs to the Empire. The soldiers roared in agreement, storming into the wreck. Ethan crouched low, heart racing. He couldn't fight them. He couldn't even run. He was trapped. Then something strange happened. The sand beneath his hand trembled. A faint glow pulsed under his skin, as if something inside him had awakened. He pulled his hand back, staring, in shock. His veins glowed faintly for a second, then faded. The AI's voice whispered urgently in his mind, not through speakers, but directly inside his skull. It chose you, the artifact. It is bound to you now. Ethan's breath caught. Bound? What does that mean? The AI didn't answer that suddenly. One of the Draxian soldiers spotted him. Human. The alien snarled, raising its weapon. Ethan froze, his hands up. But before the soldier could fire, the wreck itself reacted. The ground shook. Metal groaned. Blue light surged across the broken hull. The same glowing figure Ethan had seen in the pod appeared behind him, tall and blinding, its white eyes burning like stars. The Draxian soldiers stopped, their weapons lowering. Fear flickered across their faces. One whispered, "It responds." To him, the commander's voice thundered. "Take the human alive. If the artifact obeys him, then he will serve the Empire." The soldiers moved forward. The figure's voice rang out again, not just in English this time, but in every tongue. At once, no, humanity does not kneel. Light burst from its body, throwing the Draxians back. Their weapons sparked and died. The sandstorm rose, whipping violently around the wreck. Ethan stood frozen in the storm, the figure's glow wrapping around him like armor. He didn't understand what was happening, but one thing was clear. The artifact had chosen him, and the galaxy had just taken notice. Asterisk. Humanity's awakening. The desert storm raged, sand whipping through the night sky. The Draxian soldiers stumbled, their armor sparking, their weapons useless against the light pouring from the figure. Ethan stood at the center, his body trembling. The glow from the artifact wrapping around him like a living shield. The figure's eyes burned bright, staring at the aliens with something older than anger. The Draxian commander roared, forcing his way through the storm. The artifact belongs to the Empire. Seize the human. He raised his weapon, firing a bolt of searing energy, but the blast never reached Ethan. The light surrounding him flared, and the bolt dissolved into sparks before it touched his skin. Ethan gasped, staring at his hands. His veins glowed faintly. The same strange energy flowing inside him. The figure's voice echoed, calm and unshaken. He is chosen. Your empire has no claim here. The soldiers hesitated. They had faced countless battles, but none of them had ever seen a human command power like this. Fear spread through their ranks. Still, the commander refused to retreat. He raised his weapon again. Then both of you will die. The figure stepped closer to Ethan, placing a hand on his shoulder. In that instant, knowledge rushed into Ethan's mind stars. Weapons. Wars fought long before humanity's first city was built. He staggered, almost collapsing under the weight of it. He saw flashes of the shadow, the endless darkness that had hunted civilizations across the galaxy. He saw fleets burning, worlds collapsing, races fleeing. And always, at the center, the same artifact waiting, searching. Ethan gasped. This was meant for us. For humans. The figure's voice whispered only to him now. Yes, your kind was not born weak. You were forged to face the shadow. The storm howled louder. The wreck shook as if alive. The commander roared again, charging through the sand. Kill them. The soldiers surged forward. Ethan's heart raced. He didn't know how to fight. He didn't know what the artifact expected from him. But when he raised his hand instinctively, the storm obeyed. Sand twisted into a wall, slamming into the charging soldiers and throwing them back. Bolts of blue light erupted from the wreck itself, striking the aliens and scattering their formation. Ethan stared at his own hand, terrified. I can't control this. The figure's voice was steady. You don't control it. You accept it. It is part of you now. The commander staggered to his feet, snarling. You think one human can stand against the Empire? Against the galaxy? Ethan's voice shook, but his eyes hardened. I'm not standing for me. I'm standing for all of us. The glow around him blazed, brighter than the moon's. The Draxian soldiers shielded their eyes, some stumbling back in fear. The figure's voice rang out, carried by the storm. Remember, this night, conquerors. Humanity does not kneel. Humanity does not break. The commander hesitated, rage twisting his face. But even he could see the truth. The artifact had chosen, and it had not chosen them. With a sharp command, the Draxians retreated to their ships. Engines roared, lifting them into the storm-filled sky. Within minutes, the desert was silent again, broken only by the whistling wind. Ethan collapsed to his knees, exhausted. The glow around him faded, though faint sparks still pulsed under his skin. The figure stood tall beside him, its white eyes softening. You have taken the first step. The shadow will come, as it always does. But now, it will find more than silence. It will find humanity. Ethan looked up, sweat and sand on his face. I'm just one man. I can't fight this thing. The figure's hand rested on his shoulder again. You are not alone. When one human stands, others will rise. That is your strength. Ethan's chest tightened. He thought of Earth, of the cities still unaware of what hunted the stars. The galaxy had mocked humanity for being small, for being weak. But tonight, something had changed. The artifact had chosen them. The storm slowly calmed, leaving the wreck half buried in the sand once more. The figure faded, its form dissolving into light that sank into Ethan's skin. He gasped, feeling the weight of it settle inside him, not a burden, but a responsibility. For the first time, he understood. The logbook hadn't been a warning for strangers. It had been a message waiting for humanity. Ethan stood, looking out at the desert, his fists clenched. He was no soldier, no warrior. But now he carried a secret that could change everything. The galaxy had forgotten Earth. But soon it would remember. Asterisk.